Standard deviation is one of the easiest ways to understand how spread out data is in statistics and data science. Welcome to QuickBytes Education. Today's QuickByte is all about standard deviation, explained simply, quickly, and clearly. Let's get started. So, what is standard deviation? Standard deviation is a number that tells us how spread out values are from the average. In simple terms, it helps answer this question: are the numbers close together, or are they spread far apart? If the standard deviation is small, most values are close to the average. If the standard deviation is large, the values are more spread out from the average. That is the big idea. Standard deviation measures variation. Now, why do we need standard deviation? Because the average does not tell the whole story. Let's say two students both have an average quiz score of 80. Student A scores 78, 80, 81, and 81. Student B scores 50, 70, 95, and 105. Both averages might be close to 80, but the scores are not behaving the same way. Student A's scores are close together. Student B's scores are much more spread out. That spread is what standard deviation helps us understand. So the average tells us the center. Standard deviation tells us how much the data moves away from that center. Let's talk about low standard deviation. A low standard deviation means the numbers are close to the average. For example, imagine these test scores: 88, 89, 90, 91, and 92. The average is around 90, and most of the scores are close to 90. That means the standard deviation would be low. In real life, low standard deviation usually means the data is consistent. For example, if a delivery company usually delivers packages in 2 to 3 days, the delivery times are pretty consistent. That would likely have a low standard deviation. Now let's look at high standard deviation. A high standard deviation means the numbers are spread farther away from the average. For example, imagine these test scores: 50, 70, 90, 110, and 130. The average might still be around 90, but the values are much more spread out. That means the standard deviation would be higher. In real life, high standard deviation means there is more variation. For example, if one package arrives in 1 day, another arrives in 3 days, another arrives in 7 days, and another arrives in 12 days, the delivery times are not very consistent. That would likely have a high standard deviation. Let's use a data science example. Imagine two online stores both have an average customer rating of 4 stars. Store A usually gets ratings like 4, 4, 4, 4, and 5. Store B gets ratings like 1, 2, 4, 5, and 5. The average might look similar, but the customer experience is very different. Store A has consistent ratings. Store B has mixed ratings. Standard deviation helps reveal that difference. That is why data scientists and data analysts use standard deviation in data analysis. It helps them understand whether data is stable, consistent, or highly variable. In data science, standard deviation is used all the time. It can help compare groups. It can help find unusual values. It can help understand risk. It can help measure consistency, and it can help prepare data for machine learning. For example, in finance, standard deviation can help measure how much an investment goes up and down. In sports, it can show whether a player's performance is consistent. In education, it can show whether test scores are clustered together or spread far apart. In business, it can show whether sales are steady or unpredictable. So standard deviation is not just a math formula. It is a way to understand real-world variation. Now, you may also hear about variance. Variance and standard deviation are closely related. Variance also measures spread, but it uses squared differences. Standard deviation is often easier to understand because it is in the same type of units as the original data. For example, if we are measuring test scores, the standard deviation is still in test score points. If we are measuring dollars, the standard deviation is in dollars. That makes standard deviation easier to explain and use in real life. Here is a simple way to remember standard deviation. The mean tells you the typical value. The standard deviation tells you how typical the values really are. If the standard deviation is low, the average is a good summary. If the standard deviation is high, the average may hide a lot of variation. So whenever you see an average, it is helpful to ask, how spread out is the data? That is where standard deviation comes in. Here is a beginner tip. Do not worry about memorizing the formula at first. Focus on the meaning. Small standard deviation means close together. Large standard deviation means spread out. Once you understand that idea, the formula becomes much easier later. And if you are learning statistics for data science beginners, this concept will show up again and again. So let's recap. Standard deviation measures how spread out data is from the average. A low standard deviation means the values are close to the mean. A high standard deviation means the values are more spread out. The average tells us the center of the data. Standard deviation tells us the variation around that center. In data science and data analytics, standard deviation helps us compare groups, understand consistency, detect unusual values, and make better decisions. In one sentence, standard deviation tells us whether data is tightly packed together or spread far apart from the average. Like, subscribe, and keep building your knowledge with QuickBytes Education, one QuickByte at a time.